She looked into my eyes and said, "No regrets." Her voice was calm, almost too calm, as if she had rehearsed those words in her mind long before saying them aloud. The candlelight flickered between us, making the shadows on her face dance, highlighting the sharp lines of her cheekbones, the curve of her lips, the intensity in her eyes. There was something final in the way she said it, as if she had already made peace with whatever came next. I lifted my glass of wine, rolling the stem between my fingers, before taking a slow sip. The liquid was warm, rich, coating my throat with a taste both familiar and heavy. It lingered, just like the weight of her words. I knew, deep down, that nothing would be the same after tonight. The realization settled in my chest, an unspoken truth neither of us dared to acknowledge. She sat across from me, poised yet relaxed, tracing the rim of her glass with the tip of her finger. Her nails were painted deep red, the same shade as the wine, as if she had unconsciously matched the two. She had always been meticulous about details, always aware of the effect she had on people. But tonight, something about her felt different, less calculated, more raw. The restaurant around us hummed with quiet conversations. A couple laughed softly at a nearby table. Silverware clinked against plates. A waiter walked by, refilling water glasses with practiced ease. Outside, through the large windows, the city stretched out in all directions, glowing beneath the night sky. Neon signs blinked in and out of focus, their reflections shimmering against the wet pavement. The distant sound of a saxophone echoed from a street musician on the corner, playing a tune that felt both melancholic and hopeful. She exhaled softly, leaning forward just slightly. The movement was subtle, but I noticed. I noticed everything about her. The way her lips parted, just enough to let out a quiet breath. The way her shoulders tensed ever so slightly before she forced them to relax. The way her gaze never wavered from mine. "I mean it," she said again, her voice lower this time, as if confessing a secret. "No regrets." The words echoed in my mind, repeating themselves over and over. No regrets. It was an easy thing to say, but how many times had people said it, only to later wish they could undo everything? Regret had a way of creeping in when the moment had already passed, when the weight of a decision settled in the quiet hours of the night, when reality took over and stripped away the magic of the moment. I set my glass down, fingers lingering on the rim. A part of me wanted to challenge her, to ask if she was truly ready for the consequences of this night, but I knew I wouldn't. I knew because I wasn't sure I was ready to hear her answer. The rain had started outside, light at first, barely more than a mist, but gradually growing heavier. Droplets traced slow patterns down the glass window beside us. People hurried past on the sidewalk, some pulling their jackets tighter, others walking as if they didn't care about getting wet. The city never stopped, never paused. It moved forward, uncaring of the choices being made within this small restaurant, unaware of the silent storm brewing between two people sitting across from each other, caught between the past and an uncertain future. She reached for her glass again, lifting it gracefully and taking a slow sip. The candlelight reflected in the deep red liquid, making it look almost like blood. She swallowed, licked her lips, and set the glass down with deliberate care. Then, without breaking eye contact, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing against mine. The touch was gentle but electric, sending a current through my skin. It was a question, an invitation, a challenge all at once. I could feel the warmth of her fingertips, the way they hesitated for just a fraction of a second before settling against my hand. Everything might change by morning. That thought pulsed in my mind, over and over, but it no longer felt like a warning. It felt like a truth I had already accepted. The only thing left was to decide whether I was ready to step into that unknown, to leave behind the safety of hesitation and follow her into whatever came next. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the glass like impatient fingers. The saxophone music had stopped, replaced by the distant sound of car horns and the occasional burst of laughter from passers-by. The world outside moved on, oblivious to the moment unfolding inside. I looked at her one last time, searching her face for any trace of doubt, any sign that she wasn't as sure as she claimed to be. But all I saw was quiet certainty, a calm resolve that both comforted and unsettled me. I curled my fingers around hers, tightening my grip just slightly. The warmth of her skin against mine sent a shiver up my spine. This was it. The moment where everything changed, where hesitation was no longer an option. The candle between us flickered again, casting fleeting shadows that stretched and shifted before disappearing entirely. I took another sip of wine, letting the taste linger for just a moment longer. Then, with one final breath, I made my choice.